What's up guys, Phantom here back with episode 36 of my F1 2019 career mode as we are going to Monza for the Italian Grand Prix for round 14 of season 2.
The pit lane will be open shortly, which means it's nearly time for qualifying for the Italian Grand Prix here in Monza. With the weather as it is today, Anthony Davidson, we have, to some extent, to throw the form book out of the window. Who do you see having the advantage on this slippery, unpredictable track surface?
The trouble is, Crofty, they need to be thinking about the race tomorrow. You don't want to go jacking up the ride heights and piling on a few points of extra downforce that you're not going to want in the Grand Prix itself. The Parc Fermé regulations mean that you have to make that choice. The best thing the drivers can do is adapt with the tools they have available in the cockpit. Moving the brake bias forward will help stop the rear end slipping out under braking, and opening up the differential can really help tame the oversteer on corner exit. The drivers that can make best use of these techniques will have the best chance for success here today.
As we start here in late Q3 as it is absolutely chucking it down here at Italy, as it's supposed to be completely dry for the race, but it's supposed to be completely wet, you see here, for the qualifying performance. So we will not be putting it on pole probably like we did last year, which was the complete opposite of the conditions, as it was dry in qualifying and wet in the race, as we cautiously traverse the first chicane here as we go to the world famous Parabolica corner for the end of the lap, as Valtteri Bottas has set the fastest lap of the qualifying, and then Leclerc has bested him, and then as we come across the line we will end up being P5, just ahead of our teammate Butler, who starts P6, as we will move on to the race.
It's race day here in Italy once again. Monza, home to so many records. The smallest winning margin, for example. Do you remember in 1971, Peter Gethin beat Ronnie Peterson to the line by 1/100th of a second. There were 40 overtakes for the lead alone in 1965, and Kimi Raikkonen clocked a record top speed of 230 miles per hour here, just over a decade ago. So there's a lot to live up to then for all of our drivers today. With top speeds up to 215 miles per hour and an average lap speed of around 155 miles per hour, Monza's reputation as one of the fastest circuits in the sport is well earned. We have 11 corners on this 3.6-mile track, with the best overtaking chance coming into the heavy braking zone of the Turn 1 chicane. A warm welcome to Anthony Davidson, who's beside me in the commentary box today. Why don't we start by talking about Valtteri Bottas? That was a great win in the last race. Can they keep that momentum going this weekend?
There are never any guarantees in this business, but certainly the performance last time out would have boosted their confidence coming into this one.
It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, and it's Valtteri Bottas that completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Vettel and a Haas, Lando Norris and Sainz, Weber, Verstappen, Raikkonen and Sergio Perez, Giovinazzi, Hamilton. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Lance Stroll and Magnussen, Butler, Russell, Daniel Ricciardo and Alexander Albon, Fiat and Nico Hülkenberg completes the grid. Now it's almost time to lights out, so let's go down to the track.
As we sit here on the grid in P4 after Hamilton has a crucial penalty which allows us to maybe stretch our lead into the championship, as we get a absolute shocker of a start here, as Sainz is going to go down our inside immediately here, as Vettel is down the inside of Leclerc, as we are trying to fend off Sainz here, as we'll get the better run off of the first chicane here as we go to Curva Grande. As we move on to the backstretch here, as we have a very good run on Leclerc here, as we're going to look around the outside and then we're going to cut to the inside there, as we're going to have the inside here into Ascari, as we break nice and late there, as we have been taken out by Leclerc there, who decided to stick his nose in after being on the outside of a Scar, which is, he should have just backed out, as there looks to be a mob behind us, as we're next to Hamilton after having a brilliant advantage over him after he had that 10-place grid penalty. The lead that we had has been evaporated, as Bottas set the fastest lap of the race, being on pole position, as Hamilton is on our slipstream right now, as we're going to make him go around the outside of the first chicane here, as we brake nice and late, squeeze him out, make sure he cannot go around the outside of us. As we come into the second chicane, we have to miss Norris, and as we're around the outside, he gives us no room, as we get put into the gravel trap, as we kind of cut Weber off. As right now, I was a little hot at this moment. I was not very happy after those two incidents, as I won't drive. I kind of drove how I kind of wanted to, as Weber, as we get squeezed out, as Leclerc should have just backed out, kind of like we did there. As now Giovinazzi's gonna have a run at us down down to Parabolica here, as now we are able to keep that position, as Vettel has set the fastest lap of the race, as Giovinazzi's again gonna have a run at us down the front stretch here, as we give him the squeeze, as I was not in the mood for any AI at the moment, as they're going 3 wide into turn 1. I don't think that's going to work out very well, as we have to give room to Giovinazzi as Norris here, as we're going to go down the inside here of the second chicane, and we're going to be a little bit more forceful with our move, as Norris try to shove us off the track, as Hamilton has retired, which is very crucial, as again it has swung into our favor, the advantage of him being about 17 points ahead in the championship. That's going to be a ton more than when this race is done. As we move on to the end of lap 6, coming on to lap 7, as we get a very good run on Sainz here, as we are all over him, as we're going to get the DRS, obviously, as we are definitely within a second of Sainz here, as Sainz also gets the DRS on Verstappen, as I kind of forced my way down the inside there, not really wanting to deal with the AI there, as Verstappen's having none of mine driving style, as we have he's come back down the inside of me, as he's going to now go defensive into the second chicane here, as we think better of it, as now he just parks the apex going about 50 miles an hour. As we come into Parabolic here, we are making our pit stop, one and only pit stop, as it's only a 25% race, as we comfortably make it under the speedometer, well, the pit lane speed limiter, as it looks like Vettel has already done his pit stop here, as it's going to be a 2.3 second pit stop, as it looks to be the rest of the back markers are going to come through, and we are going to come out of the pits in P17. As we come around to make up all our positions, or at least most of them, as it looks like we are going to beat Verstappen out of the pits, as we have gotten the uppercut on him, as we are back into P10, as it looks like Ricardo was holding up Raikkonen, who's let us get back to him as we set the fastest lap of the race. And if you look just ahead, Leclerc is just going to barely, looks like he's going to get pipped by Raikkonen, as I kind of push him around the corner, as the AI normally don't go very fast, as they're going to go side by side through the second chicane here, and we're going to set up and go down and take both of their positions through Lesmo 1 here, as Leclerc as going to stay with us easily with his Ferrari, as he's going to have DRS this time, as it's going to be a little bit opposite situation here, as we're going to be defending as we go down the inside, as he easily makes it through, as I really didn't make it that hard for him, really, as we come down to the end towards Parabolica here, as we're going to have DRS down the front here, as Bottas and Vettel are a long way down the road, as we are going to have DRS and then just fly past Leclerc there, as we are going to brake a little bit early, make sure not to overstep the boundary, and then we're just going to kind of shove him out of the way, squeeze him out, because I wasn't having none of his mess. As if you see here, Bottas has set the fastest lap of the race and has taken the lead on the last lap from Vettel, as again in front of the Tifosi, victory has been snatched from Vettel, who has not won all of this year, but we are on the podium.
Thank you for all your hard work out there. That was a strong drive and a good finish. Well done.
The Mercedes team pulled out a fantastic performance today. They should be proud. What do you think it was, Ant, that gave them the edge over the competition today?
Well, I think it was clear what the main contributing factor out on the track was today: speed. I know it sounds like an obvious thing to say, Crofty, but fast cars win races, and we saw that today with our winner.
So after a magnificent race, we can now see the drivers making their way to the podium. Once again, it's the Silver Arrows who take top spot, a well-earned victory for Mercedes. And now let's take a look at the driver's standings. Our current championship leader dominated the track, securing a win and further increasing their advantage. Now let's discuss, Ant, who would you say is a contender for driver of the day?
It's got to be Valtteri Bottas, a commanding performance that I think had the audience's eyes glued to him for the majority of the race.
It's time to see how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship. The current championship leaders still hold top spot, but that gap is getting smaller. I'm equal parts exhausted and elated with this weekend of Formula One. Be sure to join us for the next one.